5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Waters, and thank you, Secretary Mnuchin, for being here again. I appreciate it. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about tariffs and trade. I'm from Iowa, so of course we're being hit hard. First of all, I appreciate the removal of the Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum. However, those were put on by your administration, but thank you so much for removing those. But I want to talk to you about the tariffs that were just placed on Chinese goods this month. And the tariff is almost on $200 billion of imports, and it was just increased from 10% to 25%. Do you agree with President Trump that China is footing the bill for these tariffs?
I agree that China is fitting most of the bill for it, yes.
So who's paying the price for these?
Well, again, when you look at the tariffs, there's probably 3 or 4 different things that are going on. One is a change in the currency, which leads to a lower price for us, that we can buy things. 2, it's margins that are being absorbed by companies in China. And 3, there may be, in certain cases, a impact passed on to our consumer, and we're closely monitoring that, and that'll be part of the exception process.
I appreciate you bringing up that last piece, because major retailers like Walmart have said they will raise prices as a result of your administration's. Do you understand how a tariff operates, and could you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm not sure if you were here when I mentioned earlier that I just spoke to the CFO of Walmart. We speak on a regular basis. So I'm monitoring with them very carefully.
So are tariffs a tax on imports?
Tariffs are a tariff on imports. They are not a tax.
Tariffs are a tax on imports, and they're paid for by the U.S. companies who import those goods. So do our companies like Nike and Adidas and Walmart, who have said they're going to pass on these prices to consumers, would you not consider that an increase on costs on folks like mine in Iowa and Americans across this country?
Well, what I mentioned earlier, and the reason why I spoke to Walmart, is because obviously they have a lot of these consumer issues. The way the tariffs were designed was the last tranche was really the consumer issue. We are monitoring carefully. There will be some exceptions. My expectation is a lot of this business will be moved from China to other places in the region so that there will not be a cost.
So, reclaiming my time, I'm not getting a straight answer here. Do you agree that American consumers will be paying more as a result of these tariffs?
I don't necessarily agree with that, and that's something we're monitoring very carefully, and we'll be issuing exemptions.
So you disagree with all of our key retailers in the country and experts who understand that a tariff is most likely passed on to consumers because that's historically what happens. You disagree with that as the Secretary of the Treasury?
I just spoke to many of these CEOs. Many of the
Do you disagree with that the tariffs won't be passed on to consumers in any way, shape, or form?
Again, there may be a small number of items where the tariff may be passed on, and those are the things we will specifically.
So you agree that American consumers will be paying more because of the tariffs?
We've made no decisions on that. The last tranche is subject to the President's approval and subject to exemptions.
It's the importers that make the decisions on that. Isn't that correct? It's their products that they're importing?
Excuse me?
The decision is being made by the folks in our country who own the companies who are importing the products, not necessarily you who's deciding what price they're going to put out on their product.
Well, again, if we issue an exemption, then there will be no price increase. And again, most of those companies are moving products to other places.
Reclaiming my time. Moving on, can you tell me what the average Iowan makes in a year?
I can't tell you exactly, but I would guess it's
can you tell me what the average American family makes in a year?
Yeah, it's between, depending upon whether you use the mean or the median, it's between 45 and 65,000.
Yeah, its median is 60,000, closer to 79,000 for the mean. Can you tell me what cost these tariffs will put on these American families?
I don't expect there will be significant costs on the American families, and that's something that we are absolutely focused on.
Have you done research on this?
I have. As I said, I've just spoken to all the major companies that provide consumer goods.
So if you've done research on this, how come we haven't seen this research? I haven't seen it. I don't think my colleagues have seen it. Why hasn't that been passed on to us to ensure that the constituents in our district aren't paying the cost for this?
Well, let me just comment. The last tranche is under investigation. The President has not yet made the decision, and the consumer products are by design in the last tranche. So
will you commit to providing us this research then?
Again, at the appropriate time, we will brief Congress on what the economic impact is of it, yes.
Okay, well, let's move on.